Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS NBA Monday. We got 10 games on the board. As far as Sunday, I went 0-2. Took the Clippers. They got beat by the Raptors. Took the under in the Bulls game that actually was still alive in the fourth quarter. It ended up missing by 8 or 9 points, though. I like the Sixers team total over, and the Sixers didn't bet it. That one would have hit. But yeah, things have been going well as a whole recently. Saturday was fun. Made some money on Saturday. Sunday, though, 0-2. Let's turn that around. 10 games on Monday. Let's do it.
I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points?
I would hope.
Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit.
Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. First up, Washington's on the road in Charlotte. The Hornets are laying 4 or 4.5, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at 217 or 217.5. Score projection for this one, 108.3 for the Wizards, 117.7 for the Hornets. In the last 10 games, the Wizards are the worst offense in the NBA. I mean, they're the worst offense in the NBA. Full season, last 10, last 5, you name it. They're the worst offense in the NBA, period. On the last 10 games, they are 23rd defensively, and they did play some good defense in their last game where they finally won. They're 14th in strength of schedule in the last 10 games. On the Hornets side, Charlotte's 23rd offensively, 10th defensively, 21st in strength of schedule in the last 10. All right, so let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with some injury reports here. Malcolm Brogdon is back, and actually he came back and they won. They snapped their long losing streak. So Brogdon's 1-0. They got Brogdon back, and they beat Minnesota. Maybe he was the answer. The Wizards were a Malcolm Brogdon away from being a winning basketball team. Who knew? Still no Sarr for Washington. On the Charlotte side, they got all kinds of problems here. Still no LaMelo Ball, no Brandon Miller, no Cody Martin, no Josh Okogie. Even Micic is listed as questionable, and that'd be tough because he's the primary ball handler without LaMelo. So yeah, there's some problems injury-wise on the Charlotte side. So why don't we start with some head-to-head history this year and check this out. The Wizards are 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread against the Hornets. If you've gotten multiple shots against the Wizards this year and you failed to win both of them, you got a problem, man, because the Wizards are like record-breakingly bad. So the Wizards had not had problems with this Charlotte team. They're undefeated against the Hornets so far this year. And like I said, this is a Wizards team coming off a win. 105-103 against Minnesota in their last one. I will say there was no Anthony Edwards. There was no Julius Randle. Wasn't exactly a full-strength Minnesota Timberwolves team, but they did win. Washington finally snapped that long losing streak, and honestly, they may be in a position to grab 2 wins in a row because this is a Hornets offense that can't do shit without LaMelo Ball. In the 3 games since he got hurt, they have a 100 offensive rating. 100. That's absolutely terrible. The worst in the NBA have 103, 104. The Wizards, who are the worst team in the NBA, they have a 101. So 100 offensive rating is truly awful. 45% effective field goal percentage. So like I said, this offense is absolutely terrible without LaMelo Ball. Now here's the good news for the Hornets. As bad as their offense has been without LaMelo Ball, the Wizards' offense has actually been worse than that in their last 8 games. Offensive rating under 97, effective field goal percentage at 45% as well. It wasn't their offense that won that game against Minnesota. They actually played some defense. Timberwolves couldn't score. But yeah, we're poking fun at the Hornets for having a bad offensive rating without LaMelo Ball. And the Wizards' offense is still worse than that, which is just crazy. So to be clear here, the Hornets without LaMelo Ball and the Washington Wizards, we're talking about 2 of the worst offenses we've seen in recent NBA history. So I'm inclined to look towards an under. The reason I really don't want to pull the trigger on it is the pace. I mean, the Wizards are a fast-paced team. They're 6th in pace in the last 10 games. That being said, look at the last 5 games. They're 18th. Charlotte, 26th in the last 5 games. We know the Hornets run a slower pace without LaMelo Ball. So maybe I glance at an under here. 217.5, 218. I mean, probably not going to bet it, but if I was to bet this game, probably an under. Next, Atlanta on the road in Detroit. The Pistons are laying 3.5 in this one. Total sitting at 234.5 or 235. Score projection has Atlanta at 118.7, Detroit at 119.3. In the last 10 games, the Hawks are 27th offensively. Hawks have been struggling to score, although they did look pretty good against the Pacers in their last one. They're 7th defensively against the 6th strongest schedule. So we can cut Atlanta a little bit of slack. They have played a strong schedule as of late. But you know what? but can say the same thing for Detroit. They're 5th in strength of schedule in their last 10, 21st offensively, 11th defensively. Injuries in this one are the exact same. Trae Young is on the report, but he's listed as probable. Other than that, still no Bogdanovic, still no Clint Capella. I'm hearing Bogdanovic might be traded in the next day or two. On the Detroit side, same as it was. No Jaden Ivey. Other than that, Pistons are at full strength here. Not going to spend a ton of time on this one. Obviously, the Pistons just played a game. Who the hell did they just play? The Bulls. The game I had the under in. Also, they just played a game against the Bulls. They won. As you know, if you subscribe to this channel, I don't really love these back-to-backs. Pistons 4-2-2 against the spread on 0 days rest this year, so it has been profitable to bet the Pistons without rest. The problem is they're 2-6 straight up, so they're usually catching points. This is a little bit of a different situation. They're laying 3.5 here. Meanwhile, Atlanta with a rest advantage, 7-8 straight up, 7-8 against the spread, 8-7 straight up. So I don't know. I guess I lean Atlanta, but definitely not betting this one. Next game. Now we get to a game where I do have a bet down. We got Houston on the road in New York. The Knicks are laying 5.5 or 5, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at 223.5 or 224. Score projection has the Knicks at 110.6, 107.2 for the Rockets. In the last 10 games, Houston's 10th offensively, 15th defensively, against the second strongest schedule. So the Rockets have been through the gauntlet as of late. On the Knicks side, first offensively, as you know, if you've been watching Knicks basketball, they can definitely score. On the defensive side, they've had their problems. It hasn't been practical joke bad, but in the last 10 games, they're 16th in defensive rating against the 11th strongest schedule. Couple of injury concerns on the Houston side. No steady Freddie in this one. Fred VanVleet's been ruled out. Şengün also listed as questionable. Still no Jabari Smith, but that's not new. He's been out for like 4 weeks now. But steady Freddie being out, that's significant. But we have a couple on the Knicks side as well. Josh Hart is listed as questionable. That's not new. He's been listed as questionable basically every single game. OG Anunoby, though, that's a new one. I think he tweaked his ankle in the Lakers game. He was out on the three-point line. He caught a pass. It was a non-contact injury. The fact that he's listed as questionable is a good sign. He wasn't ruled out. I read that x-rays were negative, which is good news for Knicks fans. If I had to guess, I'd say the Knicks are probably careful with him and sit him out of this one. Obviously, OG Anunoby has injury history. He's been injury prone, so I would be surprised if the Knicks play him here, but I would imagine Josh Hart is going to play. So what do we think about this matchup? Well, it actually might be good news that the Rockets are getting back out on the road, which is crazy because the Rockets, I believe, were the most profitable home team in the NBA last season and the beginning of this year. But look at their last 9 home games, 2-6-1 against the spread. Rockets have not been covering the number at home, but on the road, it's a completely different story. In their last 8 road games, they're 7-1 straight up, 6-1-1 against the spread. Rockets have been some road warriors, man. Betting Houston on the road's been very profitable. Houston's offense is definitely interesting. They have an offensive rating over 114 in their last 8 games, which is good. So the offense has been efficient, but look at the effective field goal percentage, under 52%. How is that possible? Look at the offensive rebounding rate, over 37%, as I'm sure you probably know. Houston's been by far the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA. So even when they miss their shots, and they miss a lot of shots, but even when they miss their shots, they're able to get second chance opportunities. And that's good news up against this Knicks team. Number one, they're struggling on the defensive side of the ball. In the last 10 games, they've got a defensive rating over 115. So the Knicks defense hasn't been all that great. And look specifically at the bottom right here. Defensive rebounding rate under 70%. So they've struggled to keep their opponents off the offensive glass. Houston should definitely be active here on the offensive glass. They should get plenty of second chance points. But here's the thing, before we switch off this graphic, look at the top right here. Houston's not the only elite offensive rebounding team in this game. In fact, the Knicks probably are top 5 offensive rebounding team in the NBA. They were number 1 last year. The Knicks can definitely grab some offensive boards. And Houston, they're an elite offensive rebounding team, but on the defensive side, they're actually kind of vulnerable. So the Knicks should be able to grab plenty of offensive rebounds themselves. And this is not a Rockets team that's playing good defense right now. Check this out. In the last 14 games, basically since Jabari Smith went down, he got hurt 15 games ago. In their last 14 games, they have a defensive rating over 115. Defensive rebounding rate below 69%. So it's actually worse than the Knicks. So yeah, I mean, this is a Knicks offense that's red hot. They're active on the offensive glass, just like Houston is. They're going to be able to score points in this game. I mean, in the last 10 games, the Knicks have probably been the best offense in the NBA. They got an offensive rating over 122. in their last 10 games. So, yeah, the Knicks are going to be able to score points right back. I'm a little worried about the pace. Full disclosure, I'm on the over here. I got it at 222.5, so I am on the over. I bet this one. I'm a little worried about the pace. These aren't the two fastest paced teams in the NBA, but we should see scoring at a high rate. We should see plenty of second chance opportunities. So, yeah, give me the over. Got it at 222.5. Next game. San Antonio on the road in Memphis. The Grizzlies, they're laying 5.5 points at home. Total sitting at 240. Wow, 241.5 here. Super high total, but it makes sense if you've watched Memphis play basketball this year. On the last 10, score projection, 116.5 for the Spurs, 120.4 for Memphis. Last 10 games, their Spurs are 14th offensively, 29th defensively, although we do expect that to come down. If you remember, we were talking about it the other day. The Spurs defense fell off a cliff when Jeremy Sohan missed those 5 games. I expect now that Sohan's healthy, Spurs defense should come back around. I mean, they were a very good defense for most of this year. So, yeah, 29th in the last 10 games defensively. I expect the Spurs defense to be better than that. They are 4th in strength of schedule in the last 10. So they have also played a strong schedule. They're matched up against a Memphis team that's 3rd offensively in the last 10, 22nd defensively, 17th in strength of schedule. I really don't have much interest in betting this game right now. There's a lot of moving pieces. De'Aaron Fox, obviously just acquired by the Spurs. That was today. He's listed as questionable. I mean, I doubt he plays already. I feel like he just joined the team. What was that, 4 hours ago? Wemby is also listed as questionable. On the Grizzlies side, Ja Morant listed as questionable. He didn't play earlier tonight. No Marcus Smart. And remember, the Grizzlies just played, so you got Memphis on a back-to-back. Don't love betting into those. So, I mean, as of right now, I got nothing. We'll talk about it on the live show, but right now it's just a pass. Milwaukee on the road in Oklahoma City. This line is now 10.5. It was 9 earlier. I actually saw it at 8.5 earlier, so it's definitely moved towards Oklahoma City. Total sitting at 233.5 for this one. Score projection, Milwaukee 111.4, Oklahoma City 118.5. In the last 10 games, the Bucks are 6th offensively, 20th defensively, 20th in strength of schedule. Oklahoma City 5th, 3rd, 26th in strength of schedule, though, so they have played a weak schedule. Injuries in this one, as of right now, it's just Bobby Portis Jr. for the Bucks. We'll have to wait and see. They did just play. They just lost to Memphis at home earlier tonight. So, I mean, whenever there's a back-to-back, there's always a chance you see a name added last minute and everyone freaks out about it. It is pretty annoying. But as of right now, it's just Bobby Portis Jr. On the Oklahoma City side, we do have some question marks. Good news, though. Alex Caruso may be returning for Oklahoma City. They've definitely missed him. If you've been following the Thunder recently, the defense has fallen off a little bit. So having Caruso back out there on the perimeter definitely would help Oklahoma City on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, still no Chet Holmgren. That's not new. Jalen Williams and Wallace both listed as questionable as well. So we have some question marks on the OKC side. This is going to be another one where I don't have a ton of interest in betting it right now. We'll talk about it on the live show, maybe when we have a better indication on who's playing. I will say Milwaukee has not been profitable on 0 days rest this season. They're 2-5-1 against the spread. So betting Milwaukee on 0 days rest has definitely not been profitable. But speaking of not been profitable, Oklahoma City hasn't been covering. If you've been betting OKC the last 7 games, you are not turning a profit. They're 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 games. So I'm definitely not trying to lay 10.5 points with Oklahoma City, not until they show me their defense is back. Maybe getting Caruso brings the defense back, but until I see it, I'm not laying 10.5 points. That being said, this is such a weird schedule spot for the Bucks. Check this out. Look at the Bucks' recent schedule here. So they're at home in Milwaukee against Philadelphia. They fly to New Orleans, immediately fly to Miami, no days off. Then they fly out to LA, from Miami to LA, then to Utah, then to Portland, then to San Antonio, back home for 1 game, then immediately fly out, go down to Oklahoma City with no days rest. This is crazy scheduling here for the Bucks. So if you ask me, 10.5 points is too many, and I would lean towards Milwaukee. I kind of want to take the Bucks plus 10.5, but this is crazy travel schedule here, and with the back-to-back, not knowing who's going to play, if we're going to get hit with a late injury report here, I guess Bucks are pass. Next. Sacramento on the road in Minnesota. The T-Wolves are laying 4.5 points at home. Total sitting at 221.5 for this one. Score projection, 107.3 for the Kings, 116.3 for Minnesota. In the last 10 games, the Kings defense, I mean, they're 28th in defensive rating in the last 10 games, 30th in the last 5 games. So the Kings just stopped playing defense a couple weeks back. Who knows if they have any intention of playing defense in the near future. They're 13th offensively in the last 10 games, 12th in strength of schedule. Minnesota in the last 10 games, the numbers look pretty good. 7th offensively, 9th defensively, 13th in strength of schedule. Injury reports on the Sacramento side, Zach LaVine will not make his Sacramento Kings debut. He's been ruled out. Other than that, I think everyone's going to be good to go here for the Kings. On the Minnesota side, they're dealing with all kinds of injuries. Still no DiVincenzo. He's been out for 2.5, 3 weeks now. Anthony Edwards is on the report. He's listed as probable, though. He missed their last game in the loss to the Washington Wizards. So it looks like they'll get Edwards back. Julius Randle is still out. He also missed the Washington game. Naz Reid is on the report as well. He's listed as questionable. So there are all kinds of moving parts in this game between Zach LaVine and the trade on the Kings side, all the injuries on the Minnesota side. I will say there's no way I can bet the Sacramento Kings right now. I mean, they are in an absolute tailspin. Like I said before, they're playing no defense whatsoever. In their last 6 games, they're 1-5 against the spread, 2-4 straight up. Defensive rating close to 123. So the Kings are playing legitimately zero defense right now. And if I'm being honest, I really don't know what to think about the Minnesota offense. I mean, they were terrible against the Wizards. They had a 103 offensive rating, effective field goal percentage at 47%. They were terrible offensively against one of the worst defenses in the NBA, in the Washington Wizards. Now, they had no Julius Randle or Anthony Edwards, and they should be getting Anthony Edwards back. In the 2 games before the Wizards game, the offense was fine. In fact, it was great. The offensive rating over 135. It was excellent. So, I mean, I think Minnesota's offense should be fine. And against the Kings defense, they should definitely score. So, I guess I would say if Anthony Edwards is going to be out there, I'd say Minnesota team total over. But if I'm being honest, this game, there's just so many moving parts. I guess Minnesota team total over would probably be my pick for this one. As of right now, I don't have a bet down on it. Next game. Indiana on the road in Utah. The Jazz are catching 6.5 points at home. Total sitting at 238.5. 117.1 for Indiana, 111.3 for the Jazz. In the last 10 games, I mean, the Pacers are on a warpath right now. 8th offensively, 8th defensively, 8th in strength of schedule. The Jazz are most definitely not on a warpath right now. 24th offensively, 26th defensively, and that's against the 23rd strongest schedule. So the Jazz are struggling against a bad schedule. Not a great look there for Utah. As far as injuries go, the Pacers are at full strength. Nobody on the report for Indiana. Same goes for the Utah Jazz, which is not something we've said a lot of this year. The Jazz are going to be at full strength. We have not seen the Jazz at full strength at pretty much at any time this entire season. We're now seeing 3 games in a row with this Jazz team completely healthy. So that's kind of where we're at with this Utah team. We're trying to figure out what this Jazz team is now that they have their full lineup out there. We've seen 2 games from the Jazz at full strength. First one was against Minnesota. They got beat by 40 points. They got absolutely destroyed by Minnesota. They followed that up, though, with a 14-point win over the Magic. That being said, Magic are looking like one of the worst teams in the NBA right now. They are truly awful, but still, 14-point win. So maybe now that the Jazz are healthy, they're going to start playing some better basketball. If you remember, there was a stretch last season where betting the Jazz at home was almost automatic. So maybe now that the Jazz are healthy, we'll see those rebounding numbers come up, because you remember the Jazz were a great rebounding team when healthy last year. Betting the Jazz at home was solid. So maybe we're going to get back to that. Who knows? The problem is, how do we step in front of the Indiana Pacers right now? They're 10-3 against the spread in their last 13, 11-2 straight up. Look at their last 6 on the road. 6-0 straight up, 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 road games. So although I do think we'll find some sneaky opportunities to bet on this Jazz team now that they're healthy, I'm not trying to step in front of the Pacers. They're on an absolute warpath right now. Probably would say Pacers are over. I guess Pacers minus 6.5 or pass. Next game. Pelicans are on the road in Denver here. The Nuggets are laying 11.5 points at home. Total sitting at 239.5. Score projection 112.6 for the Pellies, 119.4 for Denver. In the last 10 games, New Orleans is 17th offensively, 25th defensively, 25th in strength of schedule. The Nuggets, all offense, no defense. 4th in offensive rating in their last 10 games, 27th defensively. That's against the 16th strongest schedule. As far as injuries go for the Pellies, no Brandon Ingram, no Herb Jones. That is not new. Both have been out for a while. Jordan Hawkins is also on the injury report. He's listed as questionable. We are missing a couple pieces on the Denver side. No Russell Westbrook. He missed their last game as well. Also, no Peyton Watson. So Denver's not going to be at full strength for this one. All right, so what do we think about this matchup? Well, the Pelicans are going back out on the road, which is not good news. The last time they went on the road, they went on a 3-game road trip against Memphis, Charlotte, and Toronto. They were 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. It was a disaster of a road trip for this Pelicans team. In the 6 games before that, they were playing well. So after that 3-game road trip, we were wondering what was going to happen for the Pelicans. They came back home. Were they going to get back on track? Well, they didn't win those 2 home games, but they did cover both of them. 2-0 against the spread in those 2 home games after the disaster of a road trip. So now they go back out on the road to Denver. Hopefully, they put out a better performance here than they did on their last road trip. Now, we do have to give the Pelicans a little bit of credit on those 2 games back. When they came back from the road trip, the offense was working. 121.8 offensive rating, effective field goal percentage over 59% in those 2 home games. That was against Dallas and Boston too, so it's not like they played scrubs. The problem is they play 0 defense. They came back from the road trip. They covered both the games. Defensive rating over 123. So this Pelicans defense is not exactly a unit I trust. And speaking of disastrous road trips, and speaking of a defense I don't exactly trust, let's talk about the Denver Nuggets. Just getting home from a 5-game road trip, they were 2-3 straight up, 0-5 against the spread on that road trip. A nightmare road trip for the Nuggets. Defensively, it was a disaster. On that 5-game road trip, they had a defensive rating over 123, almost 60% opponent effective field goal percentage. So it's been a couple weeks since we've seen this Nuggets team play any defense at all, and they're matched up against a Pelicans team that they've actually had problems with this year. They played 2 games against the Pelicans. They're 0-2 against the spread. They did win one of them. Disclaimer, both those games were in New Orleans. Obviously, we know this Nuggets team is much better at home in Denver. So now that they're back home, maybe they're able to beat up on this Pelicans team. Definitely not a great matchup for New Orleans defensively. They're actually dead last in the NBA in defensive efficiency and transition. The Nuggets love to run the fast break. They're 6th in frequency, 12th in efficiency, 4th in the NBA in points per game in transition. So this Denver team loves to run the fast break. Pelicans cannot stop the fast break. Should be a good matchup for Denver in that respect, but we do have to give the Pelicans a little bit of credit. They've actually improved protecting the basket. In the last 5 games, they're actually 14th in defensive efficiency at the rim, 6th in frequency. So they've shored things up on the defensive interior. Denver loves to attack the rim. I mean, there's something. Personally, if you're asking my opinion, I don't think that's enough. I mean, the last time the Pelicans went out on the road, it was terrible. The Nuggets saw the Pelicans twice. Both were in New Orleans. Now they're back at home. This Nuggets team desperately needs to get right. I mean, that road trip wasn't great for them. So I usually don't like betting on a team coming home from a road trip, so I don't know if I actually bet it, but they're back home. They need a good performance. I think they're going to beat up on the Pelicans personally, so it'd be Denver minus 11.5. Not sure if I actually bet this one, though. Next game, Orlando on the road in Golden State. The Warriors are laying 2.5 in this one. Total sitting at 212.5. Score projection 104.1 for Orlando, 109.0 for Golden State. In the last 10 games, the Magic are trash. Golden State hasn't been much better, though. Orlando's 29th offensively, 19th defensively, 22nd in strength of schedule. Golden State 19th, 24th, 19th. Injuries, we still have that big question mark next to Jalen Suggs. Never know what to expect. He's been questionable in all these games. He never seems to come back, so maybe he comes back for this one. I'm not sure. Other than that, the Magic should be good to go. On the Golden State side, the Warriors may be getting Draymond Green back. He's missed the last, I want to say, 10 or 11 games. So it'd be huge for the Warriors to get Draymond back. Still no Kuminga. He's been out for a while. Now, the good news for Golden State here is since Draymond Green got hurt, the defense fell off a cliff. Defensive rating over 117 in the 11 games since Draymond got hurt. The reason I'm saying this is good news, Orlando can't score for shit right now. I mean, their offense is so bad. In the last 9 games, they're 1-8 straight up, 1-8 against the spread. Offensive rating is below 100. Defensive rating looks pretty bad as well. So like I said earlier, I mean, I think we expect the ship to right itself when Jalen Suggs get back on the court. I mean, they got Goga back. So I think we expect the Magic to get right at some point. But the basketball they've been playing recently is so next level bad that, I mean, I bet Golden State here. I laid the 2.5. Probably one of the more square bets on the board. This Magic team is just awful right now. Maybe Jalen Suggs comes back for this one. Maybe I should have waited for the injury report, but I placed it. Took the Warriors minus 2.5 in this one. We'll go through all the games on the live show tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to go see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. Yeah, let's have ourselves a good one. Please remember to bet responsibly. Hit me up in the Discord if you need me.